It's another edition, exciting one for that matter, of the program Inside Nilds. In today's package, Nilds annual quiz competition for senior secondary schools on legislature and democracy in focus. National Assembly and NTA pledge support for the competition, and Nilds undertakes public perception findings for the 9th Assembly. Hello, welcome. I am Emmanuel Ohiomokai, your guide. Just stay tuned and I'll be back. Democracy is an art that must be learnt and deliberately nurtured, especially in a climate such as ours, where military governments held sway for a long time. In a bid to inculcate the tenets of legislative and democratic practices in the younger generation, the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies, Nilds, has been organizing quiz competitions among students of secondary schools in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The annual competition commences with schools at zonal levels, then to a grand finale where the best among peers emerges. In keeping with the tradition, Nilds has held various editions in collaboration with the FCT Secondary Education Board. Some of the schools that participated in the 5th edition include Government Girls Secondary School, GSS Abaji, Federal Government College, Kwali, Government Secondary School, Yangoji, GSS Lugbe, GSS Kwali, School for the Gifted, Gwagwalada, Chelsea International Group of Schools, Gwagwalada, and Government Girls Secondary School, Jikoyi. The zonal quiz competitions held across the 8 zones of the Federal Capital Territory. At the grand finale, Director General of Nilds, Professor Abubakar Suleiman, presented various prizes to the winning schools. The DG said one effective way of engaging and positively equipping children early with the democratic culture was through civic education.
One way of engaging children very early in their development is through civic responsibility, education, which can be an important and effective tool that facilitates the participation of citizens in democratic and development processes. In advanced democracies, parliaments play a central role in promoting political knowledge through civic education, civic engagement, and civic responsibility.
Professor Suleiman emphasized that Nilds was committed to promoting democratic and legislative knowledge among students.
In the last 5 years, the competitions have provided motivation for secondary school students in the FCT to study and learn new information on the legislature and democratic governance. Through this instrumentality of the quiz competition, the Institute has significantly promoted awareness, knowledge, and understanding of the history, role, and functions of the Nigerian legislature. We have also developed positive and informed attitude towards democracy and democratic governance.
Chairman House Committee on Basic Education and Services, Professor Julius Ihomere, who represented the Speaker of the House, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, commended management of Nilds for sustaining the quiz competition. While emphasizing that education was the fundamental basis for change in any society, the Speaker promised to support Nilds in educating the younger ones on legislative and democratic issues.
I believe that the DG of the Nilds needs to be specially commended for sustaining the temper. And I know that with him there, given his pedigree and what he's capable of doing, next year will be better than this. And for the Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, he believes that education is the fundamental basis for change in any society. You can talk about change 24 hours, but without massive investments in infrastructure, in teacher training, in student welfare, in modes of teaching, and adopting the relevant technology and competing with nations that appear to be ahead of you, you will go nowhere. Whether you talk about security, which is a problem today, you talk about health, you talk about infrastructure, whatever, education is the fundamental basis for bringing about change. That is why in our legislative agenda, I believe that many of the agencies here have them. If you do not, we will bring it. We're working with the Senate. We plan to pay very special attention, not just to the buildings, but to those who inhabit those buildings, the teachers and the students. And this quiz competition is just one of those initiatives that helps to broaden your knowledge, to build leadership, to build character, to build confidence. Confidence. And that is one thing that is lacking in many Nigerian students. So I want to congratulate the schools that have made it to the finals. And I hope that today, whether you are declared the winner or not, you see yourselves as winners. Because having made it thus far, it means that you are very, very good. And the sky should be the beginning, not the limit.
A former governor of Yobe State and Chairman Senate Committee on Basic Education, Ibrahim Gaidam, formally declared the quiz competition open on behalf of the President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawan.
I am most pleased to chair this important event tailored towards the future of our children and the growth of our democracy. Beyond fulfilling your mandate captured in Section 3, Paragraph H of the Enabling Act, this event is also useful for the ethical and character growth of our children. A quiz competition is stimulating, challenging, and can be exciting. It creates an opportunity for the students to meet, interact, and network. Through this process, they can learn from each other, not only to the subject matter of the quiz, but also on other important matters of life. I am confident you all have prepared well. Preparations are actually the key to success. I imagine that you will now be very ready to release all you have learned by providing appropriate responses to the questions. What you learn ahead of this event actually serves multiple purposes. One is that it might be useful for the competition. Second purpose is that they might just be things you are now able to understand and apply for other purposes. The bottom line is a learning process that has improved you and makes you better students. You are even going to get better by learning to others, listening to others, and can harness what they know, which you do not know. The focus of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies is similarly important in the circumstance in developing a training curricula for schools and tertiary institutions. The institution has a core responsibility in our educational process.
We'll take a short break. We'll be back shortly.
The National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Nilds, in conjunction with the Secondary Education Board of the FCT, proudly presents the 6th edition of Nilds FCT Senior Secondary School Quiz Competition on the Legislature and Democracy. The zonal contest will take place on the 29th of March 2021 by 10 a.m. at the following centers: Government Secondary School, Jabi; Model Secondary School, Maitama; Government Secondary School, Karo; Government Girls Secondary School, Dutse, Buhari; Government Secondary School, Kuje; School for the Gifted, Gwagwalada; Government Secondary School, Abaji; and Government Secondary School, Kwali. The final will hold at the National Assembly Complex, Abuja, in April 2021. Announcer, Professor Abubakar O. Sulaiman, Director General, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies.
Welcome back. Debbie Agbola of the Nigerian Television Authority served as the quiz master at the final stage, which paraded the 8 winning schools from the 8 zones of the FCT.
On what date was the 9th National Assembly inaugurated? A. July 15, 2019. B. May 29, 2019. C. June 11, 2019. D. June 29, 2019. Your time starts now. Option A.
B.
B. Is that your final answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Your final answer
Yes, ma'am.
is wrong. Bonus, please. The next one. Is that your final answer? C for cat, right? Is that it? Okay, it's correct.
The scores were announced, after which various prizes were presented to the winners.
Thank you.
In an interview, the Special Assistant to Director General NTA, Kudu Abubakar, who represented the Director General, said the NTA will continue to support Nilds in its bid to instill legislative procedures and democratic knowledge in students through the annual quiz competition.
I think it's a very interesting competition, and indeed it was an interactive competition, very educative, very illuminating, and the students that participated did very well. They showed their depth of knowledge of the legislature, the legislative process, and the entire checks and balances in the 3-arm system that we have, that is both the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So all in all, I think it is something worth commending. We commend the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, and that is why the NTA, the largest television in Africa, is supporting Nilds to bring about this edition year in, year out. NTA has been there since the inception of this quiz competition in 2016, and NTA will continue to be there because NTA is partnering Nilds to propagate democracy, consolidate democracy in Nigeria.
The winners of the 5th edition of the quiz competition and their school officials, as well as teachers, later paid a courtesy visit to the DG Nilds, where the Director General pledged to personally pay their tuition when they gain admission into the tertiary institution through the Abubakar Suleiman Endowment Fund. The National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies has held a focus group discussion on public perceptions of the 9th Assembly. The forum was aimed at undertaking a research study that will bring to the fore the expectations of Nigerians for the 9th National Assembly. Such a study is expected to help in advising the legislature on ways of being more effective as it strives to meet the yearnings and aspirations of citizens. We'll take a short break. We'll be back shortly.
The National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Nilds, in conjunction with the Secondary Education Board of the FCT, proudly presents the 6th edition of Nilds FCT Senior Secondary School Quiz Competition on the Legislature and Democracy. The zonal contest will take place on the 29th of March 2021 by 10 a.m. at the following centers: Government Secondary School Jabi, Model Secondary School Maitama, Government Secondary School Karo, Government Girls Secondary School Dutse Buhari, Government Secondary School Kuje, School for the Gifted Gwagwalada, Government Secondary School Abaji, and Government Secondary School Kwali. The final will hold at the National Assembly Complex, Abuja, in April 2021. Announcer, Professor Abubakar O. Sulaiman, Director General, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies.
Earlier in the week, we spoke with the Director, Democratic Studies of Nilds, Dr. Adewale Aderemi. Now, he spoke to us about the quiz competition. He told us what brought about that idea of a quiz competition by Nilds, what has been done so far in past quiz competitions, and what we're looking forward to in 2021. And I've got here in the studio, he's been with me on the studio before, and he's right here again. He wears two caps. He's the Director, Democratic Studies, and also the Chair of the Nilds Quiz Competition Committee. Dr. Adewale Aderemi is my guest today. Welcome again to the program.
Thank you.
Now, tell me, you as chair of that committee for the quiz competitions, and we know that one competition is coming up in 2021. Tell me, what was this initiative all about? Tell me.
Well, again, I mean, it goes back into the core mandate of the institute, which is to promote democratic governance, good democratic governance, and to strengthen capacity for it. So what we're doing with the quiz competition is just to make this training, this advocacy percolate to the secondary schools. So what we do is, and this is the 6th edition you've referenced. We've had 5 in the past. Okay. So the 6th one, which is unique, and I'll come back to that in a minute, is the one we're planning to have very soon. So what we do is to at least, to put in the secondary schools, the principles of democratic governance, that the students, by the time they leave the secondary school, are very well aware of, what a democracy is and the aspects of a functional democracy. So the questions that we typically ask revolve around the whole spectrum of democratic governance.
I'm happy you talked about the fact that it's one of the core mandates of the Institute, and you are trying to percolate this down to the grassroots. Beyond the quiz competition, are there plans to inculcate democratic studies and legislature studies into the curriculum of secondary schools? And probably even higher institutions, tertiary institutions.
Well, if you are familiar with the current curricula for both tiers of education, we have civic education, we have social studies, I think, and of course you have the social sciences for the tertiary institutions, and political science and sociology and things. What we want to do as an institute is to make democracy the only game in town, and to have that culture imbibed at the very earliest levels, so that people know that, governance has to be democratic. And with this, we also, we also advance and advocate human rights principles and the whole values of free, fair, accountable governance. That's what we want to do as an institute. We will do it, and we are sure that the more that we succeed in this, the more it becomes the norm, the ground norm even, of our society, to the extent that it becomes unthinkable to have any other form of governance except one that is free, fair, and accountable, and participatory. Whether it becomes, it replaces these other traditional subjects, I think it's premature to but we will work to make sure, that the core principles of democratic governance are imbibed.
In fact, that leads me to, when you said whether it will replace, it leads me to my second question, which is really, you need support, definitely. And are you getting the support from the National Assembly? Are you getting the support from education boards? Are you getting that support to bring down this knowledge to our kids?
Yeah, the quiz initiative, for instance, is a joint initiative of the Institute and the National Assembly. We, as you might know, are an organ of the National Assembly. And I dare say, we have the buy-in of the leadership of the National Assembly in the quiz committee. Actually, the grand finale, will be holding somewhere in the National Assembly. The reason for that is also to practically, avail the finalists, the opportunity to have a feel of the setting of the National Assembly, to beyond the textbook, knowledge of it, to actually see. So yes, it's jointly powered by the National Assembly and the Institute, and of course all the education boards, basic, are involved in this, and we drive it together. All stakeholders are pulled in to organize this quiz. So it's a broad-based, kind of coalition that drives it. We only just, take leadership in planning and driving it.
Let's look at the issue of sustainability.
Yeah.
Looking at, yes, we'll have the secondary schools quiz and all that. Is there a possibility of probably extending this to beyond secondary schools?
Time will tell, but what will not change, is our unflinching commitment to propagating democratic values, and governance, and strengthening the capacity at every level that we can. Maybe it's premature to say, but we also in democratic studies are looking at maybe national essay competition, on maybe a trending national issue, and that will result in a monograph or some form of publication that will be documented. We have a lot of things, we are thinking about, but the overriding objective would be to entrench and to, propagate, the ideals of democratic governance.
I'm really excited about all these plans, and I'm sure the students are very excited too. But I want that excitement to go a notch higher.
Yeah.
Now, compared to other quiz competitions, is there something we'll be looking out for in 2021 quiz competition? Is there something new that you are going to introduce that the students will exactly look out for?
Well, like I said already, we're going to be having, it's an expanded competition. So I expect that the competition will be stiffer.
Okay.
It also affords us the opportunity to have these young ones, intermingle with people from other climes, and probably even, provide a platform for them to exchange ideas about, the state of governance in their states. We hope, and I think it is intuitive to think that the competition next year will be stiffer. One of the innovations we want to introduce is to have the questions projected, and to have a quiz master that is able to, and not just say the answer is A or B, but able to educate, on why the answer is A or B, and why A is wrong and B is right. And so we're going to improve, steadily, hopefully, and make these very relevant, rather than just being an academic placebo kind of thing that we just do year in, year out. The quiz competition is gradually gaining to be one of our flagship, events, and it's one that we take very seriously. So we hope that through it, we'll be able to recruit, a lot of the young ones to be the beacon of hope for democratic governance in the nation.
I look forward to that. Thank you very much, Dr. Aderemi Adewale, for coming to Inside Nilds and talking about the forthcoming quiz competition, Nilds quiz competition. That's where we are concluding today's edition of the program, Inside Nilds. Before I leave you, let me recall a statement by Alan Moore. It says, people shouldn't be afraid of their government. Governments should be afraid of their people. I am Emmanuel Ohiomokai. Join us again next time.